Hello and welcome to my studio. It's Lois from Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. Today I'm going to show you how I painted this snow scene. It's been inspired by the late great Ron Ranson, who would have recently been 99. He passed away a few years ago, and he was somebody that was really influential on my style of painting and on me really sort of trying to make it as a full-time watercolour artist, despite being in my late 50s when I first started learning to paint. He also first started working as an artist and learning to paint in his 50s, and so he was a great inspiration to me. But more than that, his wonderful teaching of using big brushes and unfussy, loose style painting with very few brush strokes really appealed to me when I was beginning to learn. I've been painting full time for just over 3 years now and loved just about every moment of it. And a lot of that is down to coming across Ron's style right at the very start. Today I'm going to be painting this winter scene for you as a demonstration. It's inspired by this photograph that I found on Pixabay. And as always, I'm using the photograph for inspiration. And I won't be copying every detail, but just simplifying it greatly and then just really having fun painting it, because for me that's what painting's all about. It's relaxing and enjoying and experimenting and not really minding if things go wrong, because that can teach you just as much as when things go right. So the first thing I'm doing is sketching out the scene lightly in pencil, and this gives me a roadmap for when I'm painting. If everything's in the right place first, then the painting part becomes that much simpler. And here's my finished sketch. You can see that my interpretation is very similar to the photograph, but I have made it my own and simplified it a great deal. I'm using Saunders Waterford cold press watercolour paper. It's 11 inches by 15 inches or 28 centimetres by 38 centimetres. It's taped to my board with ordinary decorator's masking tape, and my board's at an angle of about 20 degrees so that gravity will help with the painting. My sky colours today are cobalt blue, cobalt turquoise and a touch of lavender, and for the land I shall be using Payne's grey, sepia, raw sienna and burnt umber. And then I shall paint most of the scene using a 1.5 inch mottler brush, so nearly everything would be done with a large brush. I shall just finish off with a few smaller brushes, and I shall etch in some tree trunks and branches into the damp paint with a palette knife. Ron used a Harkey brush, and I started off with a Harkey brush, but these days I prefer to use synthetic brushes, and my brush is a Princeton Aqua Elite 1.5 inch mottler, and I'll use that, as I say, to paint nearly all of the scene. But use whatever brushes you like, but you will find it easier to stay loose if you use a large brush for most of the painting. So that's most of the first wet in wet painting layer finished. I'm just using the palette knife to scrape through the damp paint to start off my trees and my sort of shrubby bushes just in the mid-ground there. Following my pencil lines when I do this. Ron used to like to do this with the corner of a plastic store card. He called it a trick, and it has become one of my absolute favourite techniques that I like to use with my watercolour painting. I now need to leave this layer to dry completely. So here's the dry painting, and now I'm going to paint into the dry painting with wet paint using the wet on dry method. I'm going to start off with my number 14 round brush, and the number 14 round brush has got a good point, and it's a really nice brush for adding wet on dry detail. I've mixed up a grey from my sky colour with a bit of extra Payne's grey, plenty of water, just a light value, so that I can create depth and distance using aerial perspective and paint the mountains in nice and pale. And I'll then add some deeper tonal values to the trees in the midground and a little bit in the distance, and just work on bringing the painting together with darker values and just a little bit of detail. So just a few final touches with the tips of the 3/4 inch flat brush, which was one of Ron's favourite brushes too. This one is made by Cotman and I really like it. It's always been one of my go-to brushes. Just using it to feather that frozen riverbank a little bit more, maybe get some dry brush, just a hint of some transitions between those different planes of land. And that's the painting just about finished. I think I'm going to take the tape off and have a look and see how it looks. As soon as we see it with a clean white border, it's almost as if it's matted and framed. We see it with fresh eyes and we can see if anything else needs doing to it. And I think I'm reasonably happy with this. It's loose, it's fresh, it doesn't look overworked at all. The colours are nice and clear and bright, and following Ron Ranson's very sage advice, I've used as fewer brush strokes as possible and the largest brushes that I could use for the jobs, and it's helped me to create this really beautiful loose watercolour landscape. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my interpretation of the photograph here, painting this in my style, which of course is hugely influenced by the late great Ron Ranson. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you have any artists that inspired you at the start of your creative journey? We'd love to read about them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this demo, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. It's free to do, and if you click on the bell icon, you'll be notified whenever we post. And thank you so much to everyone that supports this channel on Patreon. And if you'd like to support the channel, then please follow either of the links below. Well, I'm back off to the studio. I've got a few more paintings that I want to work on and some sketching to do in order to prepare for some upcoming projects that I've got. So I'll see you again soon.